Yeah, we're trying to call you because you weren't there. So.
All good. Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone to the final ordinary meeting of the 2016-20 Noosa Council. We have no apologies, but we do begin as always by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're gathered on, the Gubbi Gubbi or Kabi Kabi people, and paying our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Now, two of our councillors are phoning into the meeting this evening, so we do need to move a couple of resolutions in order to allow that to happen. Councillor Stockwell.
I'll move the first one there, that we allow Councillor Jackson to attend the Council's ordinary meeting tonight by teleconference.
So seconded.
Seconded, Councillor Jurizovic. All those in favour?
Wait,
you have to wait, mate. So that was unanimous, without Councillor Glasgow, of course.
Out Councillor.
Councillor Glasgow can't vote yet because he hasn't been allowed to participate. Okay, now we have a motion before us to allow Councillor Glasgow to participate by teleconference. Move Councillor Jurizovic. Seconded Councillor... Oh, sorry, I didn't see you get to your feet there, Ingrid.
Oh, I thought it was finished, my bit. No.
Yeah, it is. It is. No, Councillor Wilkie was already on his feet. Sorry, Ingrid.
Well, I can't stand up.
I realise that. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Welcome, Jess.
Hello, good evening everyone.
Okay, we now move on to the confirmation of minutes from the last ordinary meeting held on the 20th of February. Can I have a mover and seconder?
Yes,
Councillor Jurizovic. Seconded Councillor Wilkie. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, that's carried unanimously. We go on to consideration of committee recommendations, beginning with the Audit and Risk Committee.
Merrill minute first.
Oh, no, beg your pardon. We do have a Merrill minute. I beg your pardon. Yes. I should know that, shouldn't I? We do have a Merrill minute. It's there on the screen. I suppose I should read it out for those who won't have received it. So the Merrill minute is titled Response to Coronavirus COVID-19 Delegation of the Chief Executive Officer and Request from Tourism Noosa regarding access to marketing contingency reserve. The motion reads as follows: that in relation to the coronavirus pandemic, Council A delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to make decisions on behalf of Council in relation to any matters arising from the coronavirus pandemic from 19th of March 2020 until the first Council meeting following the March 2020 local government election, and further that the CEO be requested to provide a report to that first Council meeting outlining all such decisions made by the CEO about the coronavirus pandemic that would otherwise have been made by Council in that period, and B, approve the request by Tourism Noosa for it to access the marketing contingency reserve in accordance with Section 7 of the funding agreement between Noosa Council and Tourism Noosa, noting that Tourism Noosa will determine the timing and approach of future marketing in consultation with the tourism sector and Council.
Is there a need for a second?
No, there's no need for a seconder. Councillor Jackson, I think you have a question with regard to this.
I just had a question, minor matter relating to the wording in A. It's not a major thing. And that is that in the first part of it, we're talking about matters arising from coronavirus pandemic, which of course can be also to knock-on effects which are not directly the pandemic. And then in the second half of that same sentence, we refer to decisions made by the CEO about the coronavirus pandemic, and I would suggest instead of about the coronavirus pandemic, we should really be saying again in relation to any matters arising from. Yeah. And the reason I suggest that is because I do think that there could be broader things. It's not just about the pandemic.
Yep. So after the word CEO in relation.
Yeah, replace the word about with
any matters arising from.
Instead of about the, put in relation to any matters arising from.
Yep, I'm happy with that. Thank you, Councillor.
That's consistent. Okay. That's consistent through the.
So just under the standing orders, it's a bit unusual, and normally it's the mover and the seconder, and all Council has to be happy with the suggestion.
There's only a mover.
There's only a mover, so it's much easier. So I understand the mover's happy with that, and if all the councillors are, that wording makes sense to me too.
Okay. Are there any questions in relation to this Merrill minute? No? None? I've no need to talk to it. It's quite self-evident and the report's self-evident, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Don't we get a chance to talk to it?
We can if you like. Yeah, I beg your pardon. If you wish to talk to it, Councillor Jackson, please go ahead.
Actually, I do. I think this is a very important motion because our council, as we are, our councillors in this council are facing an election, and we have this very important matter before us. And it's extremely important that there be a continuity in the decision-making process while this takes place. So to me, this is a particularly important decision to ensure that the CEO has the empowerment to carry out the work that's required and the decisions that are required in the potential absence of having council meetings while the election is completed and then new councillors are declared. I do think that a situation like we are facing as a council and as a community requires executive decision making, and at times that decision making has to be very fast. There may not be time for a lot of consultation. It's important that the CEO has full authority to progress in all urgent matters. This is a type of military operation. It's a bit like we're not facing a war, but it's something that we've never faced before, which really requires this precision. Also, I think that with the, in a sense, we've reverted to Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the survival, which is the base level of Maslow's needs, and we have to focus on that as a high priority and make that the priority over a whole lot of other things, including politics. So it's really all about making sure the job gets done. Thank you.
Councillor Giroux.
I'll just add to that. I agree with the comments there by Councillor Jackson. The one thing that this also does is ensures that any decisions the CEO makes in that time when council isn't the authority making those decisions are open to scrutiny at the end of the period, and that the new council will have an opportunity to assess and scrutinise all of the decisions made by the CEO in that time.
Anyone else feel the need to speak? Councillor Stockton.
I will. I know the CEO actually is taking on a level of responsibility that not a lot of people would like to have. However, I think, as I believe Councillor Jackson alluded to, in times of crisis, you do need to make quick, effective decisions, and it probably is beneficial not to have to go through a committee meeting process and a council meeting process to get some of those decisions made. So I hope that A will result in the ability to respond quickly as each issue emerges over the coming weeks. I also think that it is also a good foresight on behalf of the CEO to raise that issue of marking contingency. So whereas Tourism Noosa will be equipped to have a response when marketing may make a difference, doesn't necessarily mean it'll be over the next period. I also think that there is probably a C to add when the next council is sworn in, and that is that just like Tourism Noosa will need to access its contingency reserve, I think the next council will probably need to consider accessing its own cash reserves to try and help and stimulate the economy locally.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Could I ask a question?
Of course.
That kind of relates to this, and that is that the community, I have found, is not really sure at what point, those of us who are currently councillors, at what point do we continue to be councillors, and when do we stop being councillors and the new councillors become councillors?
Yeah, I can answer that. There's probably a theoretical answer to that, then there's a practical answer to that. The theoretical answer is that the term of an existing councillor concludes upon what's called a declaration of the poll. So normally that is 10 days after, or has to be before 10 days after the election. With a high number of postal votes, I expect that will be 10 days after the election. So that's when it goes through to. And then the new council commences on the day that councillors are sworn in by myself. So you have a swearing in ceremony. You normally have your first council meeting on that day as well. And that must be sometime after that declaration of the poll. So there's always a gap in between. That's the theoretical answer. In practice, of course, there's not a council meeting after the election. So there is a period in that we again, theoretically could have a council meeting next week if we needed to, but in practice we don't have anything scheduled. But certainly after the election, which is on the 28th, and for that 10 days, there wouldn't be a council meeting, so there's no real effective decision making in place, even though the councils are theoretically still hold office.
Thanks. I just thought that would be helpful to fully understand. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll just conclude by saying that, of course, there are already a great deal of activities occurring within council in order to deal with the pandemic, and they are occurring most particularly through community services and health, but also through our planning departments, economic development, and all departments really are on top of this, as well as considering continuity of essential services and council operations. There are business continuity plans in place. Our economic development department are extremely active at the moment, helping work with the business community as well as the business representatives in terms of the business community organisations. There are all sorts of considerations being undertaken at the moment with regard to fees and charges for local businesses, with regard to some relaxations in terms of the ability for businesses to be more flexible in the current environment, etc. So there's quite a bit happening. This motion fundamentally, though, deals with matters that would normally come back to council. And one example that comes to mind would be we have already approved by resolution, or will do tonight, the use of the Loop bus service again for Easter, but it may turn out that we don't need that service, in which case the CEO would be delegated therefore to make a decision without having to come back to council for a decision that we are to change the opportunity to use the Loop service. So this is very practical, as Councillor Jackson says, but the real take-home message here is that council is meeting on a daily basis, talking to Queensland Health on a daily basis, and things are moving quite fluidly as the pandemic unfolds. Okay. Anyone else need to speak before I put the motion? Okay, I shall put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion is carried unanimously. And I believe there are no petitions, so we will move on now to the consideration of committee recommendations. And the first one is the Audit and Risk Committee. The recommendation is that all those items there, 1 to 5, be adopted.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jurezkovic. Seconded, Councillor Wilkie. Anyone need to speak to this? I'll put the motion. All those in favour.
Can I?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Can I please make one comment there with
Yes,
regard to the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee? He's coming to the end of his term, and I'd just like to congratulate him for his efforts, and thank him. Hey?
Scott Williams.
Scott Williams, thank you.
Not until August he's going through.
Yeah, but I mean, it's coming to. Said I might not be here to get the opportunity to say it again after the 28th of March. So I'm going to take the opportunity here and now. He's been a fabulous chair of that Audit and Risk Committee. I'd like to congratulate him and thank him for his time and effort, and the other members that have come and gone through the time of the Audit and Risk Committee over the last 4 years.
Thank you. Anyone else need to speak to it? Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. We now move on to Planning and Environment Committee recommendations. Item number 1 was referred to the General Committee. Item number 2 was referred to the General Committee, so we'll deal with both those later. Item number 3 is a Planning and Environment Court appeal for a mixed-use commercial development at 218 and 20 Hoffmann Drive, Noosaville. Item number 4 is a Planning and Environment Court appeal, refusal of application to subdivide at Happy Jack Creek Road, Ridgewood. The recommendation is that all those matters that aren't dealt with elsewhere be adopted.
I shall move that.
Moved Councillor Stockwell.
Seconded.
Seconded Councillor Jackson. All those, you don't feel the need to speak to it,
I do
anyone?
not feel the need to.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, that's carried unanimously. We go on to the Services and Organisation Committee recommendations. Item number 1 is the Go Noosa Easter Loop bus service and paid parking. Item number 2 is the new flag protocol.
Can we waive that one?
Item number 3 is the January. You've been waiting for days for that, haven't you?
I'd like to move. That's the worst. The whole term.
Item number 3 is the January 2020 rate levy overview, and item number 4 is the community facilities half-yearly performance overview. Councillor Wilkie, I believe, has something to say.
Yes, I need to declare a real conflict of interest in this matter because I am the secretary of the Noosa Gymnastics Club, and the Noosa Gymnastics Club has a lease in the part of the Bicentennial Centre, and as the Bicentennial Centre is subject as one of the facilities mentioned in this report, so I will choose to leave the room while this matter is decided.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, Mr. Chair, just voting on deciding on
Item 4 only,
item 4 only.
yes.
I'll move the
Moved
item
Councillor
4.
Jurizovic, seconded Councillor Stockwell. So we are dealing with the community facilities half-year performance overview. Anyone feel the need to speak to this? Put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. It's carried unanimously. Please invite Councillor Wilkie back.
Yeah, he'll have to do a double twist and return. Ah, sorry.
Oh, he's in mine with bad.
They're getting worse.
With a half pipe.
It's a downward trajectory.
Trampolining back in the room.
Okay, so we are now dealing with items 1 to 3 from the Services and Organisation Committee recommendations.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved Councillor Jurizovic. Seconded Councillor Stockwell.
It's like being in gymnastics.
Anyone feel the need to speak to it? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. We go on to the General Committee meeting recommendations. Item number 1 is a development application for an MCU for entertainment and dining business, Type 3 bar at 5 Taylor Court, COOROY. Now, councillors, there has been some changes suggested by Wakefield Sykes to the staff recommendation. So I'll give you a chance to look at those and I'll read them out. Councillors Glasgow and Jackson, did you receive the email with those changes?
Yes,
I've
I've
read
read it.
that.
Thanks.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Happy with it.
So the change to item 4 now reads: the proposal is contrary to overall outcomes 14.110.2 C and D and specific outcome 07 of the Driveways and Parking Code, as the applicant has not satisfactorily demonstrated that there is sufficient car parking on site for the proposed use, with limited opportunities for street car parking. There's a new item 6 which reads: there are no discretionary matters which would warrant approval of the development proposal, and a new item 7 which is: for the aforesaid reasons, approval of the development proposal would not advance the purpose of the Planning Act 2016. Any
Can I just
questions?
mention that the numbering that you just read out doesn't match the numbering that's
No, just
on
get
the
Kim.
page that I received.
I'll just get Kim to explain.
Okay, I didn't realise that, sorry.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, that's correct, Ingrid. The version you were sent this afternoon had a duplication in reason for refusal 1 and 4, which essentially said that the proposed bar is identified as inconsistent in the industrial zone. Says the same thing in 1. We've just removed that duplication.
Okay, thank you, that explains. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? If not, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder.
Looks like I moved.
Moved Councillor Stockwell,
I'll second it.
seconded Councillor Wilkie.
I do have a question, if I may. Oh, sorry.
Yes, sure.
No. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't wish to speak.
In essence, what do these refinements do? How is this motion substantially different, or different in any way, to the motion passed at the General Committee meeting, please?
Through the chair, Councillor Wilkie, it is normal practice for us to get our reasons for refusal reviewed by us council solicitor, and on occasion he does suggest just some refinements to the wording, because there is, after the decision, very limited opportunity to add to those reasons. So there is no substantial difference other than refinements to the original intent based on a legal review.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't detect any.
There is
Oh, Councillor
follow up.
Driscoll,
There is one condition in there, or reason for refusal in there. Item 6. There are no discretionary matters which would warrant approval of the development proposal. I haven't seen that before. Can you explain why the need for that condition in there?
Yeah, sure. There is on occasion we do include that reason for refusal. The application is impact assessable, and under the Planning Act, there are criteria about what impact assessable development can be assessed against, and if it is refused, the things that should be considered. One of the things that the Planning Act says is assess impact assessable against all the relevant provisions of the planning scheme. And any other matters or any other relevant matter. So that condition refers to that there isn't any other relevant or discretionary matter or reason in accordance with the Planning Act as to why it should be approved.
Thank you.
Councillor Stockwell, you wish to speak to it? Anyone wish to speak to this? Okay, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, that's carried unanimously. We carry on with the General Committee recommendations. Item number 2 becomes item 3 as a result of a further report, and that is a development permit for an MCU for multiple dwelling 10 units at 142 Noosa Drive, Noosa Heads. Item number 4 is again a further report for a development application for an MCU, 2 detached houses and 12 multiple housing type 4 conventional, reconfiguration of a lot at 27 ATTUNGA Heights, Noosa Heads. Item number 5 is Category D, Bushfire Recovery Exceptional Assistance Immediate Support Package. Item number 6 is the Financial Performance Report for February. The recommendation is that those be adopted except where dealt with otherwise.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll move that.
Councillor Driscoll moved. I'll allow you to second it though if you're happy. Councillor Jackson?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried unanimously. That concludes our committee recommendations. There are no further reports, no confidential session. There are no public questions this time. The next meeting will be determined after the election. And I thank you all for your attendance. Meeting closed.
For the last 4 years.